Are you wondering what unit you should be using in PvE as a free-to-play player? Well, in this video, I'm going to be testing out some builds and see which ones work best. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, join our Discord, and also follow us on Instagram so you always have the support that you need to really enhance your account and get yourself to the next level. Also, if you stick around until the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can save a lot of money when you make in-game purchases by getting some amazing cashbacks each time you purchase anything. Hello everyone and welcome to another video of the Sky channel. So in this video, I'm going to be testing out multiple builds and seeing how they perform in the Pangolin. This includes several lineups that people have said worked very well, including CI with Azure Crazy and Azure Crazy's second skill locked. Then we're going to unlock the second skill and see if that increases damage or reduces it. And finally, we're going to test the standard Wise Berserker, Sly Hunter, and Azure Crazy lineup as well. Now, last week I did 15 attempts using the other lineup, which was Wise Berserker, Sly Hunter, and Saharan Silver Ant. And you can see that the average damage came up to be around 3.16 billion damage. And the maximum, which we're actually going to save for future reference, is this one, 4.09 billion damage. So that one is now saved. We're going to have that at the top. Now keep in mind that's a maximum in 15 attempts. We're going to be attempting 3 different lineups today, and we only have 15 attempts for all 3. That means 5 attempts each. So there's a little bit of an unfair advantage this one receives, because if you remove this one and then you also remove the other 4 billion one, which is this, the remaining ones aren't really that high. Right? There's only 2 that are all the way 4 billion and above, and then the rest seem to be less than 3.6 billion, right? So these 2 are outliers. They're not really the norm. So if I were to just have tried this 5 times, like between this and this, the maximum would actually be just 3.25 billion, which is much less than the 4.1 billion that we have now as the maximum. Anyway, we are limited with the amount of attempts that we have, so we have to live with what we got. So let's just hope we get good numbers in the 5 attempts and we can actually have a good comparison. Now, the other thing, of course, is that are my stats very different from last week? I don't think so, but we will definitely be looking at that as well in our first report now that we have this best one startup. Okay, so the first unit is going to look like this: CI, Saharan Silver Ant, and Azure Crazy at the back. Now, the reason for that is because I'm trying to figure out whether CI and Azure Crazy work really, really well together, which is something I've heard. And I've seen reports where CI is actually out-damaging Azure Crazy as well. So that's something worth looking into. In this particular case, I actually have Azure Crazy's second skill locked. Now, the reason for that is because CI copies a damage skill of the backline ant, which in this case is Azure Crazy. And if you have the second skill locked, it only has 1 damage skill, and that's the one that attacks all enemy squads and does a bunch of damage. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to see if the second skill is locked, will CI always mimic the 5th skill and attack all units? If it does, then CI's damage is going to be extremely high while Azure Crazy's second skill is locked, and then once we unlock it, the damage should probably go down. Now, for consistency, I'm going to make sure that in every single attack, Azure Crazy maintains the skill attack mutation. Now, that's just because I want to make sure that it's having that in every single attack, and it is going to be in each of our attacks. So that's the reason for that. CI can have the attack mutation, and later we can give that to Wise Berserker when we move over to the 3rd unit. Alright, so we are ready to start with our attacks, and this is going to be the first one using CI, Saharan Silver Ant, and Azure Crazy with the second skill locked. Alright, and we have our report. 6.279 billion damage. My gosh, I am shocked myself. I was not expecting anything like that. CI actually has 2.94 billion damage. That is insane. Then Saharan Silver Ant 897, not even close to any of the others. And then Azure Crazy 2.114 billion damage. Wow. Okay. I am starting to wonder whether I really want to unlock the second skill or not, because this damage is crazy. See, I actually beat Azure Crazy's damage. Now I do have it at 8 star, but the amount of damage we're looking at is crazy. Now, just to quickly check, see 2185% attack and 225% skill attack. So let's compare that to last week. So 2137 and 239, but this has this skill attack mutation. It's 225. So pretty similar stats, right? So I'd say these are comparable. I have a second report as well. It's 4 billion this time, and this time again, CI is doing a lot of damage, much more than Azure Crazy is. And then Saw and Silver Ant 835,000. It's really not looking comparable to Azure Crazy, even with its skills locked. Okay, I got the third report as well. Again, 5.066 billion damage. This time again, CI is actually beating all records, 2.9 billion damage. Saw and Sylvan again consistently about 800,000 and Azure Crazy 989,000. So clearly we can see that the second skill locked is definitely helping CI do a ton of damage and is hitting really hard. Like there seems to be no comparison between the Wise Berserker, Sly Hunter, Saw and Silver Ant unit and this one here. Right? It's like 4, 5, 6 billion. These are the three reports that we have. And the last week's maximum was 4.1. So yeah, we got our fourth report and it's even higher than the first one, 6.3 billion damage. And if you scroll down, you can see CI 1.879 billion, Sahara and Silver Ant 778 million, and Azure Crazy this time was actually crazy, 3.3 billion damage. This time it's actually Azure Crazy stealing the spotlight, while CI still did amazing. I mean, much better than Sahara and Silver Ant, of course, but the show was all Azure Crazy this time. And I got our fifth report, 6.2 billion again. This time we can see, well, CI actually took most of that, 2.9 billion. Saw and Silver Ants consistently 850 or something. And Azure Crazy 2.1 billion damage. Okay, so one thing that I have certainly seen is that CI is performing really, really well with the second skill of Azure Crazy locked. Now, I really don't want to unlock the second skill, given that I'm seeing how good the second skill locked is performing, but I did promise you guys that I would, so okay, I guess I will do it. And hopefully it doesn't disappoint me. So let's give it a try now. In the meantime, we can see clearly that with the second skill locked, there was massive performance. Okay, so we got our first report in with the skills unlocked. Still pretty good, 5 billion. You can see that CI's damage actually seems to have gone lower, 1.45 billion. Saw and Silver Ant is unchanged. And Azure Crazy, 2.5 billion. Let's try again. Maybe the second time we might see a big jump again. Though I'm starting to assume that we're probably not going to be averaging like 6 billion like we started doing so with our previous build. But you know what? Maybe we can be averaging about 5.5 billion, which is still pretty reasonable. Okay, we got our second report in, and I'm starting to see why having the second skill locked was probably a much better idea than this one. Again, we can see that CI is still doing good, but not overperforming like it was in the previous one when the second skill was locked, right? Now it's about 1.4 billion. It's almost guaranteed to be less than Azure Crazy now. Saw and Silver Ant is doing pretty much the same. Azure Crazy 1.91 billion damage. We got our third report in, and yikes, this time we're actually going to the average of the previous week's unit. All right, so CI 700,000, even worse than Saw and Silver Ant this time. Saw and Silver Ant being Saw and Silver Ant, normal damage. Azure Crazy 1.4 billion damage, which is decent. Now, I do want to mention right here in the middle of the video that if you have Indigo Velvet, you are certainly using Indigo Velvet, right? I haven't included that, even though technically it is free to play because I never got it. And I think most free to play players don't have it unless you managed to hit a jackpot and got super lucky. Yeah, if you have Indigo Velvet, you're using Indigo Velvet. I mean, even paid users are using Indigo Velvet. Indigo Velvet actually at 0 star outperformed a 7 star Black Velvet with Awakenings unlocked. So yeah, if you have Indigo Velvet, you're probably not going to be using any of these 3 units or 4 units that are being tested. You're going to be using Indigo Velvet, and the rest of your unit is probably going to be building around that. And as a free-to-play player, if you have Azure Crazy as well, you're certainly going to have Indigo Velvet in the first row, and in the third row, you are going to have Azure Crazy. We got our 5th report, 5 billion, okay, going back to the decent range at least. This time, CI managed to do 2 billion despite the 2nd skill unlocked, which is good. Siren Silverhand, I feel like I don't even need to talk about that because it's always doing the same amount of damage, and Azure Crazy 1.8 billion. So for this report, seems like CI managed to break the record of Azure Crazy, which is good. You know, maybe it only copied the 5th skill and ignored the 2nd skill. That's probably what happened, but a good report altogether. Now, while we wait for the 5th one, I want you to know you can save a lot of money using Aptoid with my promo code on every in-game purchase. And there's no more limits to purchases. There was a limit that was introduced, 5 every 30 days. That's been removed. Now you can use my promo code infinite times and save a lot of money. So do check out the video that's linked in the description of this video and start saving a lot of money like hundreds of others are already doing so. If you have questions, you can join me on Discord and ask me there. 5th report, actually the best ones from this set, 5.55 billion damage, and obviously there's not going to be a 5.55 billion damage without CI doing a lot of it, 1.9 billion. And then Azure Crazy, 2.4 billion. That completes this particular unit. Honestly speaking, I got better results when the 2nd skill was locked. So if you're not a shooter main and you're thinking about doing a lot of damage, you're probably going to want to keep Azure Crazy's 2nd skill locked and perhaps use it with CI, because the numbers I got from that, I don't know if I'm going to be getting in the rest of the day today. But we still have a 3rd unit to test out, so let's get to that before we say anything further, and that is Wise Berserker, Sly Hunter, and Azure Crazy. Now that we're not using CI, we can give that mutation to Wise Berserker. And so let's get started with this unit. The good thing about this one is that Sly Hunter actually allows your backline to do more attacks, right? Meanwhile, our backline squad immediately deals 260% damage to 2 random enemy squads. That's helpful. And the other helpful thing is that starting the 2nd routing increases the first damage of all of our squads by 40% at 0 star, which means that perhaps it can really boost damage of Azure Crazy. Let's see. And we have our first report, and it doesn't seem to be working that well at least. 3.85 billion damage. And you can see Wise Berserker 1.2 billion, Sly Hunter 220 million, and Azure Crazy 1.975 billion. Now, part of me is wondering, what if I were to use CI over here instead? Now, it doesn't really benefit from the extra normal attacks that Sly Hunter gives, but the fact that Sly Hunter increases the first damage every single round, maybe it can make up for that? I'm not really sure. And honestly, we don't have enough attempts to try it anyway. So you can see 3.9 billion this time. By the way, I want to show you what you should be using if you're a pay to win. Probably this: Indigo Velvet, Rainbow Chaser, and Azure Crazy. You can see the sort of damages that he did. Honestly, this is a pretty bad report for Ukron. He's done way better ones as well, but the unit is probably going to look the same. So 3.9 billion, it's 1.2 billion with Wise Berserker, 534 million with Sly Hunter, and 1.7 billion with Azure Crazy. All right, 3 attacks left, and so far it seems like this unit is actually the lowest performing one, right? Even the one with the 2nd skill unlocked with CI was seeming to do better than this one. All right, we got our 3rd report, and you can see again, numbers are actually pretty similar. 1.4 billion for Wise Berserker, 460 million for Sly Hunter, and only about a billion for Azure Crazy. Quite interesting. Now we have 2 attacks left, and I think it's fair to say that we've reached close to an agreement on what's going to be the best unit. you're probably going to be using CI in the first row. You're probably going to be using Azure Crazy with the second skill locked in the third row. But the interesting thing is, Sly Hunter and Saan Sylvan's damage may not be that far apart, so it's probably worth putting Sly Hunter in the middle of Azure Crazy and CI. That might actually work. Something that I do recommend you to try because of the fact that it is giving extra damage to others, right? So maybe you'll get a lucky hit. CI and Azure Crazy might actually end up doing a lot of damage together. And we got our fourth hit, and honestly, it's coming out to be pretty much the same every single time. I don't see a lot of variation in this. It's always been around 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, right? You know what? Let's try something. Let me break the rules that I said in the beginning because I really want us to get a glimpse of what this looks like. And I know I said it's going to be 555 and whatever, but this unit is giving similar results throughout. So I'm assuming if you were to do a fifth attempt with the same one, I can just guess 3.8 billion damage. But let's try this one because I'm really curious and I'm assuming you might be too. And let me quickly give CI the attack mutation back and then we can take a look at what that report is going to look like. How about that? Who knows, maybe it'll come out even higher than the second skill locked ones and beat our top score of the day. Let's see. Well. 4.8 billion, CI 1.8 billion, Sly Hunter 580, Azure Crazy 1.988 billion. Okay, it's not that bad. It's certainly better than the ones where I'm using Wise Berserker in the first row. So Wise Berserker is out, completely out. And to be honest, so is Saan Sylvant. I mean, you saw the scores that it's been giving 800,000 every single time. Certainly, it seems like Saan Sylvant's reign of damage is probably over, and so is Wise Berserker's. CI is certainly in the game right now, especially when it's paired up with Azure Crazy. It does massive amounts of damage. So let's summarize what we've learned so far. First thing first, having the second skill locked gives insane amounts of damage, primarily to CI, but it seems like it also probably does to Azure Crazy as well. I haven't seen it come up with another 3.3 billion damage across the different reports, but yeah, second skill locked actually gives amazing reports. And it's been giving consistently the highest damage that I've seen so far. So CI with Azure Crazy, while Azure Crazy has second skill locked, seems to be giving the best amount of damage. Now the problem is that if you're a shooter main like myself, you probably don't want to have the second skill locked throughout. Azure Crazy is good in PvP as well, right? It's one of the high damage dealers. It's probably going to be replacing Saan Sylvant in my pro unit, so probably going to be replacing Saan Sylvant in yours too. So unfortunately for shooter mains, you cannot really sustainably keep the second skill locked. You'll have to unlock it because it is a useful skill, right? And eventually we want to start it up and everything. You can't do that if you haven't really unlocked all the skills. So if you are a shooter main like me, you're probably going to be unlocking the second skill anyway, and then the meta is probably going to be looking like CI, perhaps Sly Hunter, and then Azure Crazy. I think this unit, the one that I use in the end, probably will give me the best results over multiple attempts. I understand the first attempt, it gave 4.8, still way better than the one that was using Wise Berserker, but I think over time, maybe this might give good results altogether, because at the end of the day, what this is competing with, the other option would be CI, SSA, and Azure Crazy, and Saan Sylvant's max seems to be like 800,000, right? Which Sly Hunter isn't too far from, given that this is a 0-star Sly Hunter and that's a 7-star Saan Sylvant. I'd probably say Sly Hunter comes out on top. So for a free-to-play player that doesn't have Indigo Velvet, you're probably going to be using CI, Sly Hunter, and Azure Crazy. The moment you get Indigo Velvet, it is definitely getting into your squad and it's taking the first row spot. So what you need to think about is it better to have Sly Hunter in the middle, Indigo Velvet in the first row, and the back row is your Crazy, or you switch out Sly Hunter with CI. So CI comes to the second row, Azure Crazy in the third row, and obviously Indigo Velvet in the first row, no Sly Hunter. right? So what you need to think about is, are you going to be removing CI? Or are you going to be removing Sly Hunter? If I were to guess, you're probably going to be removing Sly Hunter, right? It's probably going to look like Indigo Velvet, CI, and Azure Crazy the moment you get an Indigo Velvet. So those are the PvE lineups, right? I understand there's some limitations on testing. I would have loved to test like 30 times each, but unfortunately, I'm limited to 15 attempts altogether, and we had to pack in a lot of them. But hopefully, we did get something concrete out of it. The previous meta, Wise Berserker, Sly Hunter, and San Sylvant is sort of obsolete. The moment you get an Azure Crazy, everything changes. It's certainly getting into your unit, and probably so is CI, right? Because they just work so well together. Before you go, I want you to know you can save a lot of money using Aptoid with my promo code. Check out the video that's linked to the description of this video, or click the button that's going to appear at the top right of the screen that'll take you to that video, and start saving a lot of money by getting 10 to 35% cashbacks on every single purchase. And join a bunch of other people that are doing the same. If you do, message me on Discord and I'll add you to a specific group just for the people that are using the promo code. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.